President of Botswana, Mokgweetsi Masisi, has thanked his South African counterpart, Cyril Ramaphosa, for his support following a bus crash in Limpopo on Thursday that killed 45 Botswana nationals. Former President Jacob Zuma will be barred from contesting for a seat in Parliament because of his criminal record. And the Monetary Policy Committee of the Reserve Bank has kept the repo rate unchanged amid concerns about inflation. A very good afternoon. If you've just joined us, we're coming to you live from our studios here in Auckland Park, Johannesburg. Welcome to the Week in Review. Now, this is the program where we review some of the biggest stories to come out of the week. I'm your host, Mfundo Babala. As part of Shiluba's one-year anniversary celebrations, the party's leadership, led by Bongani Baloyi, is promoting the party's vision today at the MTN Noord taxi rank in Johannesburg. Shiluba was formed on this day in 2023. When the party was launched, Baloyi said it was unique because it's centered on values of Ubuntu, family, non-racialism and ethical leadership. SABC News reporter Natasha Piri spoke to Baloyi a bit earlier.
This political party, Ubuntu is going to be the ideology. Is accompanying that will be multiracialism, it will be family, it will be community, because we believe in a communitarian society. So it's quite important that black people must start moving away from into foreign cultures, but rather moving back to who they are themselves. And Shiluba is that party that has really ignited that sense of Africanism and a collective awakening of our consciousness as a country. So we are quite proud of that because it means that we are going back to ourselves as Africans and choosing politics from our essence without removing who we are as a people. Now, Ubuntu means we embrace amasiko, isintu, including and the custodians of Ubuntu, which is Amakosi, who are also the custodian of land in this country. So we're not confused about who is the custodian of Ubuntu and the custodian of land. These are leaders who have been usurped their powers by the Constitution.
Let's talk about the name. Shiluba derives from the Tsonga word meaning flowers, which is a very beautiful name. But do you feel that the name Shiluba is inclusive enough? Would you think it probably denotes party or slants rather to a political denomination or rather maybe racial group or something?
It's always interesting to hear that question because had I called it a flower, you would not ask me that because it's in English. The problem with our Africans is that we generally believe yonke into that must be validated, must be in English, and we have chosen to we don't assimilate into a system or culture of whiteness or the Western type of culture. That's why we said Shiluba is that we're going to birth, which is a flower. We are these are revolution. So before there was a revolution, what did it give? And we are saying what it gave us, the flowers of the revolution, who must take the baton from those who gave us this democracy to the next level. So effectively the name Shiluba is a beautiful name. So to get Imbali means you must work. You must clean, you must plant, you must nurture, you must water for you to enjoy what comes out of it. That's exactly what we're doing today. We planted a year ago. Today we're here to look after this beautiful plant of ours. Alone. I've got a group of people next to me, in front of me and behind me who believe in this unique vision. We have bought into the beautiful vision of Shiluba.
Talking about, reaping the rewards of what you sow, how many members do you have on a national basis? And I mean, I was just reading through your party. I mean, you aim to between the ages of 18 and 48. What about those who are old, who've bought into the concept of Shiluba? Why not attract them?
The primary target is those between the ages of 18 and 49. So when you understand the plight of those between the ages of 18 and 49, you also understand that their parents and they're still dependent on their parents. So if we deal with the issue broad with this voting cohort, we're actually relieving our parents. So our secondary target market is our parents, who of the socio-economic state of the country bear the full brunt. Our kokobe took a pension, but they are still looking after their children, including their grandchildren. So government has given birth to where our grandparents cannot enjoy their pension but still look after their children who are unemployed, who are unemployable, and some who are drug addicts and alcohol addicts as well. So we firmly believe that this is the right market to speak to. future rate should be current taxpayers of this country, should be the working class of this country, but have been relegated to just wallow in nothingness.
Mr. Balo, you speak about the ideologies of your political party. I liked your tweet yesterday. You had a logical difference between Shova and the MK party. You further go on to say that Shova introduced Ubuntu as a political ideology. You spoke about Ubuntu earlier on when it was formed last year. Unpack this for us.
Absolutely. As we are reflecting and enjoying our one-year anniversary, we're also reflecting on the impact on Shova in the body politics of the country. You see, we can different language with a different ideology. Today, that ideology and language is not only spoken in Shova. People laughed at me then, but now other parties are speaking the same thing. They are our hands, which is something that is powerful, because when people mimic you, it's the best form of appreciation, because they where the brain's trust of this country and where we are going. So what I'm merely stating with that tweet is Shova has contributed immensely, that beyond what people see, and people must start to understand when people speak like us, when people mimic you, it's a deep and we have actually influenced others who are coming today to speak about the very same things we started speaking about a year ago.
Can't preempt what's going to happen post the polls, but if the MK party, which is this, we're willing to speak to you because it's clear you say you share the same ideologies of Ubuntu. Would you be open to speaking to them?
They are following our ideology. So at this stage, we have no policy going to talk to after elections. We are going to go to elections without any entanglement. We have not spoken to MK. We have not spoken to any other party. We are just moving along by our own self. So that's the position at this stage. After elections, when South Africans said, we trust you, we've given you the vote, where it happen, we'll apply our minds and say who. But obviously, ideology is a very important thing for us.
All right, Bongani Baloyi there speaking to Natasha Piri, saying they are flowers of the revolution. Well, we do apologize sincerely for the poor quality of that audio. Welcome back. Thank you very much for staying with us. The ANC and the EFF are discussing the restructuring of their working arrangements in hung metro municipalities. Ekurhuleni Mayor Sivuile Ngudwana was voted out on a motion of no confidence on Thursday, where the ANC abstained. The Speaker of the Council, that's Nthabiseng Chivenga of the EFF, was saved by the ANC and the motion of no confidence against her, opening the door for a deeper coalition with the governing party.
Political leaders are crisscrossing the country this weekend, attending church services and trying to woo voters. Meanwhile, political and governance issues still plague residents of some municipalities. The mayor of Ekurhuleni was voted out in a protest by the ANC against its voting partner, the EFF, in Ekurhuleni. However, the relationship between the ANC and the EFF is not broken, as they are still in negotiations over the mayoral chain and MMC positions.
Our region, our province, has been talking with the EFF, and that meeting with Floyd is coming, which will meet as the political principals of the ANC and the EFF. So those talks are continuing, and we are still going to talk because it's in the interest of the people to resolve the issues before the 7th. So that there is stability in Ekurhuleni, and so that there is good governance, people get services. At the present moment, for 7 days, you have the officials running the municipality. And the reason why there's no service is because of the failure of the coalition system at local government, because things change weekly. So we need to gather maturity and be mindful of the fact that whilst we can squabble, but people need services. And that is what, as the ANC, we're committed to, and we are talking with the EFF that we can confirm.
The economic freedom fighters are adamant that there was no need to remove the mayor. But the ANC and smaller parties in the coalition were not happy with the mayor and seized the moment with the opportunity given by Action SA's motion to boot him out.
The motion of no confidence against the mayor was not necessary. It was unnecessary. And that does not trivialize, though, the issues which the smaller parties and the ANC have been raising about coordination of governance and government in Ekurhuleni, that we have had a mayor who was unable for some time to consolidate the different perspectives into a common vision and an agenda for the municipality. And we had thought and we had said this to the leadership of the ANC in the province and at the regional level, that there can be a different mechanism to address that calamity instead of removing the mayor, because it's not like there is an immediate solution that we can put in place in relation to Ekurhuleni. So I don't think that there is a crisis of governance on government in Ekurhuleni.
The IFP, also in attendance at the Grace Bible Church, believes there's not much that parties can do now to negotiate a new deal in Ekurhuleni Metro because the national and provincial elections are in May.
We're going to elections on the 29th of May. People must be very careful how they exercise their vote. Truly speaking, immediately after elections, there should be a deep consideration of all municipalities that are not fully functional. I don't think there is anything that can be done now, between now and 29 May. All our focuses are on 29 May. But those who are in charge at whatever level should ensure that they do not become a disgrace to the voters in terms of failing to deliver services. Every government sphere at least should do its best so that the voters can have more courage on the 29th of May.
Governance in many South African municipalities is a problem. The local sphere of government is struggling to provide water and other basic services to the people. Samkele Masego, SABC News, Orlando.
Former President Jacob Zuma will be barred from contesting for a seat in Parliament because of his criminal record. The IEC upheld an objection against Jacob Zuma contesting the elections. Zuma was first on the MK party's list of candidates. He was among 8 candidates who had been objected against. We're now joined by political analyst Dr. Professor Dirk Kotze to unpack this very latest development. Professor, good afternoon and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
No, it's a pleasure to have you with us. So the only objection was that was upheld, was that of the former president related to his jail term. What are the political implications of such a decision for the MK party, firstly?
Well, I think, if one takes into account that they are supposed to understand the regulations of the election, including the Constitution and specifically Section 47 that refers directly to this matter, they should have known that will be impossible for him to stand as a candidate for the Member of Parliament. So they must have taken that into account, but they were most possibly testing the resolve of the IEC to see whether they will be willing to implement it ultimately. Politically speaking, I think it's not going to change very much because he will still be able to continue leading the party's election campaign. He will still continue to be effectively the face of the party. And I think he will even be, I'm not sure exactly about it, but it might be that his photo might even appear on the ballot box or ballot paper as the leader of the MK party. Mm-hmm. So the only thing that will be absent is the day after, about a week after the election, when they must go to Parliament, become members, established as members of Parliament, and then become the leader of the party in Parliament. I think what is going to happen is that they will have to appoint an internal leader of Parliament, but President Zuma will effectively still continue to be leader from outside Parliament.
Mm-hmm. I want to touch on a point that you mentioned around the former president not being a political novice. He's been there. He is a seasoned politician, and stating that most probably he knew the provisions of the Constitution, he knew that he possibly would be barred. Then what would have been the reasons? Because some are now thinking perhaps it was just the talkability around the political party that at this point they continue to dominate headlines. And if you're saying that this is something that at the very least he in particular would have known, would have barred him.
Yes, I'm absolutely sure that he knew about it. If he didn't know about it, then his legal advisors and lawyers, persons like Dali and Limpopo and others, were supposed to tell him about it. But I think it's not necessary to go as far as that. I'm absolutely sure he was aware of this. But that I think it was a way of saying, well, we want to push what is our political weight? What is will be the response from especially the IEC, but also the public in general, of what do they think is possible and can be allowed or not? What is there for the political risk by excluding him from the list of candidates? And I think he got his answer now, and that is that despite is the fact that he's so well known politically speaking, still the rules of the election are paramount. The Constitution is still regarded as more important than any person else.
Then I want us to touch on your scenario that possibly there would then be a particular individual that is identified to lead the party in parliament. Does the person of Zuma enjoy support and regard to the extent that even if he were to identify that particular individual to stand as a presidential candidate, that his supporters would accept that person?
Well, I think that person will simply be a standby person or stand-in person. That person will not have the real powers of a leader in parliament, the leader of the party in parliament. That person will be, in a sense, the substitute of President Zuma. So he or she won't act on their own. It will always be after what they have consulted with President Zuma and other senior persons, before, let's say, they take a stand on how they are going to vote in parliament, or who they will support as a candidate when there's elections taking place, or anything of those matters. So this person will never be in competition with President Zuma. It will simply be a substitute for him, but nothing more than that.
Now, the candidates process is not yet over. There's an opportunity for the former president to still appeal as per Section 30 of the Electoral Act. But it's not lost to many of us that his disqualification is based on legislative provisions, as we've spoken. So honestly, are there prospects of success here? Should he appeal?
Absolutely not. It's not even legislative. It's not in the Electoral Act on its own. It is actually prescribed in the Constitution, Section 47(1)(e). It's absolutely explicit. So in order to change this, or for him to be allowed to become a member, they have to change the Constitution with a 2/3 majority before that.
There was a question posed at the media briefing of the IEC around the need for parties to act in accordance with the Electoral Code of Conduct. We have on numerous occasions reported on parties that say if their candidates are removed from the ballot paper, there would be chaos, etc. Would this be an opportune time to caution political parties against the type of language insofar as the IEC is concerned? Because the president of the country has cautioned against such insightful language, if you will. But would this be an opportune time for the IEC themselves to come out strongly and say such would not be tolerated?
Yes, that is so. But I think the one small point that is still outstanding is that the parties haven't signed that code of conduct yet.
As yet.
They're going to sign it on the 4th of April at Gallagher Estate. Once they've done that and done it in public, and all of us will be able to see it on TV, and some of us will be able to attend it, then it becomes absolutely binding on them. Up to now, the parties were participating, but they were not yet accepted their registration and the nominations of the candidates. So they can have all sorts of arguments to say it's not yet so much binding on them. But very soon there will be no excuses. And there are some sort of responses that's possible. The most extreme is that they can even become disqualified as a political party, or they can be fined, or there can be all sorts of measures taken if they transgress that code of conduct.
So broadly speaking, though, there's also been a lot of speculation around who's likely or later to coalesce with whomever post the elections to form government. But when watching an address, I think it was last week, by John Steenhuisen on a public platform, he took a swipe at smaller parties that he said were seemingly choosing to be opposition to the main opposition. Then went on to particularly speak on Rise Mzansi for taking a position on land reform, saying that land reform mustn't be weaponized, but it's inevitable. People must be given land. This then suggests to some that it's not as clear as some think that many parties may be opposed to the ANC, but not necessarily prefer to enter into coalitions with the Democratic Alliance. Your views on just that conversation on coalitions post the elections?
Yes, this is going to become a highly complex situation after the election, and there will be very little time in order to deal with it, about 19 days in total before everything must be finalized. So there's not much time for negotiations that in other countries are taking months or even a year. I think what we are seeing now is posturing by the different political parties. They try to present themselves in the strongest possible position without saying we depend on some of these other parties in order to be successful in this election. So they are not very sort of strong or inviting other parties to come closer to them or to indicate that they want to cooperate with them. The same applies to the ANC. The ANC has at the moment a grouping of about 9 parties, for example, in Johannesburg, including parties like Al-Jamaah, COPE, the Patriotic Alliance, and other PAC and other parties. But at the moment, we have very little talk about that. There's some sense of that they are together or that they feel that they are some form of alliance in this election. Mm-hmm. I think the position of almost all the parties are saying, we want to go into the election on our own, see what is the maximum we can get out of the election in terms of support. And once we have that, then we are in a position to negotiate for to become part of a bigger formation, a coalition or an alliance, opposition alliance. Mm-hmm. So I don't think we must expect that we are going to see up to the election a lot of movement in terms of parties coming close to each other and almost anticipate the type of formations that will be formed after the election. But as I said, they have very little time after the election in order to do that. So I suspect that some of the talks will take place behind the scenes. We won't know necessarily about them, about the possibility of working together without saying it to the public.
Mm-hmm. And I suppose that particular aspect of there being little time post the elections is one that many of them have raised, because it's significant who you go into bed with. So it has been a point where they felt that there should be reviews insofar as that is concerned. But thank you very much, Professor, for your time this afternoon and insights. That was political analyst Professor Dirk Kotze unpacking the decision to uphold the objections against former President Jacob Zuma's candidacy for the upcoming elections. More news on the other side of this break. Do stay with us.
Get ready for an exhilarating journey throughout the day with the power-packed lineup on SABC News. Start your morning live with Sakina and Leanne as they bring you the freshest updates. Ayanda sets the agenda with breaking news and a sneak peek into the day's headlines. Nompu and Nastasia are on point with the latest in business stories and market updates. Unati will provide a bird's-eye view of SA Today, including in-depth analysis to keep you informed. Get the full view. Join Bongiwe and Mfundo as they navigate through all the events shaping the world around you. The influential and powerful will face the nation to account to Clement Maniatela, offering you insights and perspectives that matter. Don't miss out on the conversations shaping our society. And for the late edition news, Limpopo brings you the top stories as we wind down into the night. Stay tuned. This is SABC News, independent, impartial.
According to a report by Gun Free South Africa, gun violence is the leading cause of murder in South Africa.
You have about 9,000 guns that are annually reported to either have been stolen or missing.
We have a problem with the influx of guns into our society.
Another gruesome mass killing here.
It's the availability, it's the easy access to the weapons, that's the issue.
Let's make it difficult also to obtain guns. It's so difficult to get a licensed firearm, but it's so easy to get illegal firearm.
We're going to get every gun. We're going to find every suspect.
Welcome back. Thank you very much for staying with us. So the Easter shopping season is expected to boost the retail sector this year. Now, this is according to the latest mixed method research study conducted by Capital Connect, which also noted a sharp increase in the sector brought about by popular international retailers. The Capital Connect study predicts a turnover increase of 2.2 billion for the entire retail during the Easter period.
All retail sectors showed negative growth in 2023, but according to the latest study, there's a clear turnaround happening this year. Last year, consumers felt the pressure of the weak economy, which impacted their ability to spend. This year, growth is expected to average 1.5%, up from a mere 0.5% in 2023.
What you saw last year is that consumers really became much more financially vulnerable during last year. And there's quite a lot of things impacting on that. Just remember is that the wage hikes that consumers received last year was substantially lower than in the past. There's quite a lot of consumers that also lost their jobs last year, although there was also significant employment growth last year. But quite a lot of the employment growth was not in the formal sector of the economy, but also survivalists in the informal sector of the economy. Something that really hit consumers hard last year is that they suddenly found that their debt, because of the higher interest rates, was so much more their debt servicing, and that put a lot of them under pressure.
An expected reduction in interest rates in the second half of this year should help to alleviate the debt burdens of middle and higher income earners with mortgage and vehicle-related debt, while a further reprieve in inflation should boost real wages for workers across the board.
The Easter shopping season is expected to signal the start of a turnaround for the retail sector. General dealers are expected to see real retail sales grow by 1.5% during 2024. Specialist food, beverages and tobacco stores are forecast to capture around 521 million rands in additional sales over the Easter period. Real sales growth by textiles, clothing, footwear and leather good dealers is expected to reach 1% this year, while household furniture, appliances and equipment dealers are expected to capture around 151 million rands in additional sales.
What we are forecasting is that consumers will spend more than they did last year. And the simple reason for that is that there's currently high levels of employment growth as well as high levels of compensation growth. And as you indicated, also the possibility of lower interest rates. And when you look at what consumers are buying, they firstly buying essentials because a lot of them are still incredibly vulnerable. This is also a shopping season when there are specials on offer. But remember, it's also party season. And so quite a lot of them are buying things like confectionery more, sweets, etc. So your general dealers will definitely be benefiting from the essentials being bought.
Going into the Easter weekend, we would expect retail sales activity to remain reasonably sluggish as negative growth in real wages and restrictive financial conditions persist. However, conditions should improve later in the year. We expect growth in household spending to improve marginally this year from 0.7% to 1.2%, but we are likely to see continued pressure on purchases of high-ticket items such as cars and large household appliances.
Professor Van Aert says clothing purchases from popular overseas retailers such as Shein and Temu are increasing at a faster pace. The two online marketplaces have reported a significant increase in orders from South Africa, even causing logistical challenges for their courier partner.
We're seeing more and more buying clubs. Buying clubs in the sense, for example, that various people are clubbing together with respect to a single purchase and bringing into the country. And then more and more, we're seeing that a lot of people are buying that not for own consumption, but to resell that. And we've actually done a tracking study in South Africa to see, for example, to what level goods bought from especially these two retailers, international retailers that we've been tracking, are actually being bought and resold in South Africa, and what are the profit margins associated with that. And what's fascinating in that regard is that even when the profit margin is added, that it's still lower than what's on offer in South Africa.
Capital Connect has encouraged retailers to optimize their businesses well before the start of the busy season, like the Easter, to get the best possible results. It says the critical success factors include a strong brand culture, solid upselling and cross-selling strategies, and fine-tuning marketing. Diabo Seto, SABC News, Johannesburg.
The Monetary Policy Committee of the Reserve Bank has kept the repo rate unchanged amid concerns about inflation. The repo rate remains at 8.25%, and the prime lending rate, which is the average rate of interest charged by banks when lending money to their customers, remains at 11.75%. This means the installments that indebted consumers pay on their debt will remain unchanged, while those with savings will continue to earn the same interest on their savings. For more on this, we're now joined by Chief Economist at Econometrics, Dr. Azar Jamin. Doctor, good afternoon, and thank you very much for your time.
Good afternoon to you.
Now, it's a pleasure to have you with us. So most analysts had initially stated that the best outcome for now would be for the rate to remain unchanged, taking into account the higher than expected annual consumer inflation. And that is exactly what the Reserve Bank has come out to announce. Your views on this decision?
I think there was a total certainty as to the decision that the Reserve Bank would take. The previous week, we had received news of a rise in the inflation rate from 5.3 to 5.6%, which was a bit more than many people had anticipated. And the core inflation rate, that is when you measure inflation excluding what happens to food and fuel prices, which tend to be very volatile and affected by factors beyond our control. Even then, the inflation rate rose from 4.6 to 5.0%. So there was reason to believe that some people would expect the Reserve Bank to raise interest rates in that kind of environment. But the fact is that even at 5.6%, the inflation rate is still well within the 3 to 6% target set by the government for inflation in the country. So there was no undue pressure on the Reserve Bank to raise interest rates, especially when we know that internationally the trend in interest rates, everyone is expecting interest rates to be coming down. In many Latin American countries, they have already started coming down quite sharply. But even in the United States, Britain, Europe, and the like, we are expecting interest rates to come down later this year. So in that kind of environment, it would have made very little sense for the Reserve Bank to follow suit in raising interest rates right now, especially when it knows that there is a good chance that by the second half of this year, inflation will have started coming down once again. Mm-hmm. And it's for that reason that they didn't increase interest rates. But at the same time, bearing in mind that, you know, the higher the inflation rate goes, the higher inflation expectations tend to go, it was also reluctant to lower interest rates anytime soon.
Mm-hmm. Now, Doctor, these are welcome news, but factually 8.25% is high. It's the highest level in 15 years. And although the Reserve Bank did reiterate that they're aiming for that sweet spot of 4.5% in consumer inflation, we're currently at 5.6, as you stated, that it has increased from 5.1 to 5.6, and it was not anticipated. But it seems realistically that the target is running ahead of us. What needs to happen now?
Well, a number of things need to happen. You've got to realize that for purely statistical reasons, you could get inflation starting to come down because of the very, very much higher increases in inflation that we had, in prices that we had a year ago. So for inflation to remain high, it means that the rate of increase in prices has to carry on at as high a rate as was the case before. And that is unlikely likely to happen. You've already mentioned how consumers are under pressure. Under such circumstances, it's going to be very difficult for businesses to pass on cost increases willy-nilly and hope that they still manage to sell goods. As a consequence, there will be a fairly low pass-through effect from now onwards. There are a couple of dangers. The one is if oil prices shoot ahead in coming months due to geopolitical factors internationally, that could upset the apple cart. The other one is the intensification of drought conditions in the northwestern regions of the country. Already we've seen a downward revision of the forecast for the maize crop from 16 million tonnes a few months ago to now just 13 million tonnes. That means a greater shortage of maize, and it's a staple food. And if maize prices rise unduly, that will feed through into meat prices and, fodder prices and that kind of thing. That's also a danger. And that is why I think we're set fair now for interest rates to remain where they are and not come down for at least another 6 months. But bear in mind that if interest rates around the world are starting to come down in a few months' time, it really won't make sense for our Reserve Bank to raise interest rates any further.
Then on the growth front, we heard that the Reserve Bank's forecasts indicate a modest growth acceleration for this year at 1.2% based on the expectation that there'll be a decrease in power cuts. Your views on this?
Yes, I think that's very logical. That is the general theme at the moment, that some things have come right. The business sector has been starting to help to alleviate many of the infrastructural programs that have just not happened until now. And we are seeing a reduced level of load shedding compared with a year ago. Believe it or not, just think back this time last year, there was stage 6. We're now, down to stage 1 or stage 2. That's very encouraging. And secondly, there have been signs that some of the logistical bottlenecks at South African ports are being alleviated to some extent. Again, we had a major change in leadership at Transnet, and it seems to be starting to bear fruit. More generally, we're starting to see moves afoot for the private sector to come in to start refurbishing our rail network that has been badly neglected for many, many years. So these are useful infrastructural programs. Then on top of that, we've got new renewable energy projects, investment into them, and investment into the transmission grid. Many of these renewable energy projects are in the Eastern and Northern Cape, and we've got to find ways of bringing that electricity back to the hinterland, whereas in over our history, we've produced most of the electricity in the north, in Mpumalanga and Limpopo and KZN, and transmitted it to the rest of the country. Now, that all provides some significant investment opportunities, and that is why one is looking for economic growth this year to be slightly above last year. But make no mistake, whether it's 1.2% or 0.6%, it clearly is not enough to alleviate the extensive poverty that exists in the country.
Doctor, thank you very much for your insights this afternoon. That's Dr. Azar Jameen. He is an economist. Let's shift our focus to this story now. Limpopo Health MEC Dr. Popi Ramathuba has confirmed the sole survivor of Thursday's tragic bus accident is in good health. 45 worshippers were killed when a bus travelling from Botswana to Moria fell over a bridge and caught fire on the mountain pass between Mokopane and Merkin in Limpopo. An 8-year-old girl sustained injuries and was airlifted to hospital. Speaking at a media briefing yesterday, Ramathuba said the girl underwent a minor procedure but is well.
We are comforted by the fact that she's in good health and she's recovering. We are positive that she will recover very well. And as we have indicated earlier on, our head of forensic has already briefed us to say, up to so far in our mortuary here, our forensic, we have received 34 body bags. And that doesn't mean 34 bodies. It's 34 body bags, of which 9 we can confirm that they are identifiable. So up to so far we can say 9, which we are working with the High Commissioner on the process of identification, but they are identifiable.
Now, meanwhile, the president of Botswana, Mokgweetsi Masisi, has described the deaths of 45 Botswana nationals in a bus crash in Limpopo as a huge blow for the country. Masisi had these words of comfort for the bereaved families.
Dumela Batswana betso. Re phakela re tsoga mosong ono re tsogela go utlwa kgang tse di matlhotlhapelo tse di utlwisang botlhoko tsa kotsi e regetseng maabane kgwedi ya Mopito e le 20 le bohera bobedi bona ngwaga kotsi ena e regetse ko lehelong le le bidiwang Mamatlakala ko kgaolwaneng ya Limpopo kwa Afrika Borwa. Batswana betso a re tshwareneng ka mabogo ka gore nna mosadi wa me khuduthamaga le puso re ntse le ngwela re ntsha mautlwele botlhoko re gomotsa maloko a kereke ya ZCC go tswa mo Lepolole ba e leng gore ne ba le moeletong la tumelo ka malatsi ano a Paseka ba go Moria ba go rapela ka maswabi le kutlo botlhoko ba le 45 ba wetse ke siro sa kotsi ba tsamaya ka koloi ya base me botlhe mo teng ba re tlogela ko nteng ga mosetsana o ngwaga dihera bobedi ke ene hela tshetseng nako e ke yone ya gore ya ka go bolelwa re tshwarane ka lepai go le botlhoko re tlhoka dithapelo re go motsa ba e leng gore ba tlhokagaletswe le ba e leng gore ba amegile ke kopa botlhe ba e leng gore ke badumedi ba sekriste le botlhe ba tumelo tse dingwe gore ba weka mangole re rapelleng matlhotlhapelwana gore batho ba modimo e tle re go motsege ka jalo ke eletsa gore ke leboge thata magoko a kgomotso a setsadi a ke letseng ke amogetse bosigo tautona Cyril Matamela Ramaphosa nteleditse a gomotsa ya ka go iragetse.
Now, while many parents are fuming following the deregistration of the 4 Educor colleges, students at Damlin College say they're not surprised at the institution losing its accreditation. And this comes after Higher Education Minister Blade Zimanda confirmed the accreditation of Damlin College. City Varsity, Lucium Colleges and Ikesa City Campus have been withdrawn due to years of gross non-compliance, including failure to submit annual financial reports, not adhering to curriculum standards and allegations of corruption. Students say the cracks at Damlin started showing a while back when many lecturers started revolting.
Following the deregistration of the 4 Educor colleges, parents of students who study at the institutions are left frustrated. This parent says her child, who is studying at Damlin, only has 3 subjects left before completing his qualification.
I'm so frustrated and angry.
What are you demanding?
My refund. My son will start afresh because this qualification is not going anywhere. If I can say my son can come to this school to continue, what I'm going to do with the document? It's not valid. It's not going to be valid. It's going to be a degree that doesn't have value.
The 4 Educor colleges have been deregistered after years of irregularities.
Poor quality of teaching and learning, lack of proper administrative support, poorly qualified staff, corruption and bribery, lack of response for requests for refunds, lack of professionalism, exploitation of poor students, non-payment of staff salaries, and underpayment of staff salaries.
Some students at Demlin say the cracks started showing a while back at the embattled institution.
There was no compliance, especially when it comes to administration and student advisors. I would say that they're fast in charging school fees, reminding you that you're late with your payment, than resolving problems like portal issues.
Lecturers were leaving, some lecturers weren't coming to class. Already the culture was just bad from the beginning.
Honestly, there were signs. There were signs since last year. The signs were there. So much was happening. Lecturers, there was inconsistency when it came to lecturers. For the first semester, you'd find different lecturers, second semester, other lecturers, and also just the lack of communication when it came to the actual campus itself.
Most of them have paid over 50,000 rand up front.
I would like to be reimbursed because unfortunately I don't believe in them anymore. I don't have faith in them anymore. I'd like to be reimbursed.
For them to reimburse us our money so that we can look for our alternatives ourselves, because I do not believe that they're actually going to help us look for other colleges to go to.
Body Educor that represents the colleges is yet to respond to the many questions linked to the saga. Staff at the 4 colleges are urged to approach the Labour Court and CCMA for help. Meanwhile, higher education has urged students to always scrutinize and verify the legitimacy and statuses of all institutions of higher learning before registrations. Patricia Fasage, SABC News in Pretoria.
The Nelson Mandela Bay Municipality is optimistic that the annual Splash Festival will boost the local economy during Easter. The 4-day event is in Gqeberha, is jam-packed with activities for young as well as old. It brings thousands of tourists and festival goers to the metro.
The festival consists of water sport and beach events such as volleyball, entertainment by local and national artists, a fun fair for children and food stalls, setting the perfect mood for the Easter weekend. The municipality injected 3.5 million rand into this year's edition.
This Splash Festival is attracting visitors from afar, and we're happy as the metro to have people here. It involves both the young and the old, meaning that it is a family event whereby a person can bring his or her family to enjoy themselves here. There is everything for everyone.
The 4-day festival is expected to be a shot in the arm for the local economy.
It is our aim to improve the economy of the metro. It is hosting such events like this, whereby you'll be able to attract the people to come to the metro. Also, the tourists are here to spend their money. The hospitality industry is full. People now then are benefiting a lot from it, and our people are also working there. Then the revenue of the metro will indeed increase.
For festival goers, the fun-filled program is the perfect way to spend the Easter holiday.
I think the atmosphere is awesome, and I'm having a great time, and the food is nice.
Everybody enjoyed themselves, and yeah, it's a good atmosphere, man. I love this Splash Festival. You can see me here next year also.
Festival is quite nice, entertaining for the family. It's really good vibes.
The Splash Festival will end on Monday. Rando Nomoy, SABC News, Gqeberha.
And that's where we leave it for today. We're back tomorrow. Enjoy your afternoon further.